wow. So like all that time I thought God had deserted me. No, like it was just like, it was just like, no, you have to go through this hard time, and you have to like go through this because there's going to be a time where it's going to be double as hard as this, but you're going to be ready for it.
Yeah. What's up, Ordinary Discussions? Hey, welcome back to our podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. Today we have a great guest, Weston Webb. You may recognize that name from before. Weston did a podcast with us right before he started his hike on the Appalachian Trail, a Thru-Hike. We're going to talk a lot about that in this podcast and kind of what he learned about it, but not only the trail, kind of what God put on his heart and the spiritual component of it as well. If you haven't listened to that podcast, you can find it in the description, or you can click the link here, and that'll take you to Weston's first podcast. But he has finished the trail, and today we're going to talk about all the details of it, and it should be really exciting. Hey, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, leave some comments. We love to hear from you guys, and just be part of this community. It's great that you join us and listening, and we really appreciate it. All right. All right, let's do this. All Weston right. Webb, how are you, buddy?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Great.
You're back to civilization?
I am.
Oh, man. Is that tough?
Oh, is it tough? Yeah, it is a little bit.
Yeah.
It was smoother than I thought it was going to be. I think the week at home was harder than it is out here. There's definitely a lot more to keep me distracted. So
yeah. Okay, so a little backstory. So Weston Webb, I mentioned it in the intro, but Weston is Emily Webb's son. If you guys watch the podcast much, you'll know that Emily Webb is director of Ordinary Women, and so she's very integral. And 1 second here, we need to get you a rubber mat. I'll get you a rubber mat here in a second to put that on a coaster.
Oh,
but here, I'll give you this one. There you go.
Thank you.
But Emily is a big part of Ordinary Movement, and so this is her son, Weston. And Weston did a podcast with us before where he was about to embark the night before, embark on the Appalachian Trail Thru-Hike. And so he has finished. What a journey. It's amazing. It took you how many months?
It's 6 months and 4 days.
6 months and 4 days. And we have a lot to talk about. So I was just asking him how it was being back to civilization. You know, he slept in the woods and lived in a tent and on the ground and all those things. We'll get into those details, but let's just start out with what it's like to transition back. So you spent 6 months in the woods.
Yeah.
What was it like to transition back?
Oh man. Definitely showering is weird. Let me just say that you went from showering once every 3 weeks to then you're like, oh, you got to shower every day now. And that's strange. It doesn't feel natural, which is a weird thing to say. And so certainly didn't get any good sleep the first week back, which also sounds crazy, but just sleeping in my bed is like, oh, you're not used to it. You're used to sleeping on the ground. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just want to sleep in a bed. And you get to a bed and you're like, I can't sleep at all. So that was weird.
Yeah.
That's
what was it about that? I mean, why couldn't you sleep in a bed? What was the issue?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely like being outside and like hearing the wind at nighttime and just the leaves rustling around like that makes you sleep very well.
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, keep in mind, you're physically exerting yourself, hiking 15, 20, 30 miles a day. And so you're tired.
Yeah.
You're very tired. And to get back into civilization in that first 3 weeks, I had to walk every single day or else I wasn't sleeping at night.
You're saying the first 3 weeks back.
First 3 weeks back. Yeah. You're like, oh man, I can't wait to just like stop walking. And then, after the first day, you're like, oh no, I have to keep walking or else like I won't sleep at night. Like
really?
Your body is just so acclimated to it that it's a big change.
Yeah, that's interesting. So last we spoke, you were at a hotel in Georgia, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you were heading out for the trail with your buddy. What was his name?
Blake.
So tell me, what was that like? Like, what was the start like?
Oh man, definitely doing that podcast. I was so nervous. I didn't eat that night. Oh, I was freaking out.
About the podcast?
I was more scared to do the podcast than I was to start the trail.
Oh my gosh. And in full disclosure, I was so ticked off at that podcast because I could not get the audio to work. And we spent like 30 minutes trying to get my audio to work. So I finally get the headphones to connect and everything else. And then they didn't work. So my audio is terrible. I was like so frustrated by that. Oh man, if I would have known that was going to make you so nervous, maybe we would have skipped it.
Oh, it's completely fine. It doesn't matter. I'm so glad we did it because I've gone back and so I watched it for the first time when it came out. And when it came out, I'd already walked through Georgia and North Carolina, and I was in Irwin, Tennessee when I watched it the first time. And I watched it and thought, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe I thought all that. All right. And so then I watched it 4 separate times.
Really?
Yeah, I watched it a lot because I like, I mean, even this podcast we're doing right now, like I thought about it every day.
There were only 5 views on that podcast, so you watched it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think last I checked, there was like 111 views or something. And yeah, whatever. But
well, there's more than that because we also have the audio. So we get more audio listens than video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, yeah. So I watched it first in Irwin. I watched it again in Maine. And then I watched it again in Pennsylvania when I was coming back down. And each time I watched it, I just felt more and more embarrassed.
Why?
I was so naive. I thought
how could you not be
all figured out? I mean, I didn't know anything.
Well, how could you not? You've never done it before.
I know. It was just like my preconceived thoughts, and they were all wrong.
Well, that's the beauty of it. I think.
So I'm glad I can redeem myself.
I would be embarrassed about that for sure.
No, I mean, yeah.
Nobody's judging you. If they are, tell them to go hike it for 6 months and then come back and judge you, right? Yeah, for sure. So you said something interesting there, which we're not going to hit on now, but we will later. You said when I was coming down from Pennsylvania. So keep that in mind as we move forward, because that's part of the story. But
absolutely.
So you set off with, and I just asked his name. I forgot already. That's on my mind. Blake. So how did that work out?
Okay. So
not throwing anybody under the bus. It's just the reality of the trail.
I mean, the reality of what happened is about 3 weeks in, there's just some stuff that came up in his life and he had to get off trail. But he wasn't even the only one. I mean, at the time we were hiking I had met, Rocky, Brandon, Blake, and Eric. And I had lost Rocky. He had gotten about a week ahead. And then Eric left. And then Brandon and Blake quit on the same day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So then all of a sudden I found myself in Hot Spring, North Carolina, and I was all alone. And so I went from hiking with like a group of people, and it was fun. And I don't want to say it was like a party, but it was like, felt like you were at like summer camp. It was like 3 weeks of like all these people. You're just starting out. Everyone's fresh, and like nobody's really sick of anything. The terrain's really easy, and it felt fun. It was great. And then all of a sudden, like, whoa, I'm alone. And then it's like, I wrote it down the day it happened because the first day I started journaling. It was like 3 weeks in, and I'm like, I feel like I need to start recording this because it's no longer feeling like summer camp. It feels like I'm alone in the woods. And
because you were,
because I was.
Yeah.
So that was pretty scary. Short story is I then caught up to Rocky about a week later and met more people, and it was good. But yeah, there was definitely a period of loneliness. I mean,
was that, do you look back on that and think that was bad, or are you thankful for that?
No, I'm thankful for that.
Tell us why.
I think I just got started on the wrong mindset, which is terrible. I mean, there's going to be a lot of situations like this. I mean, keep in mind, I'm human. I'm not perfect. And this wasn't some little trip. I mean, it's 6 months of my life. You think about how many times you mess up and make wrong decisions within 6 months of your life. It's what happens. I mean,
6 hours for me. I'm pretty.
I know. Yeah. And yes, that's just the short story is I quickly lost focus. I mean, I got distracted. I mean, it felt like this little, camp, summer camp. It wasn't something that I had really thought about too much. And sorry if I'm not doing a good job explaining that.
No, you're doing great. It's just a conversation, man.
Yeah. I know. It's just, it wasn't good. Like, I didn't start on the right foot. I mean, I think in the first 3 weeks, like, just being honest with you, I was reading my Bible maybe 3 times a week, which is terrible because like I went from reading my Bible every morning to then it's like and I thought that that's how it was going to be the entire time. And then you quickly realize that that's not how it usually goes. And it's sad, but
Yeah.
it's the reality.
Yeah. It is interesting how sometimes we think that when we get in the wilderness or do things like that, we're going to be more in the Word.
Yeah.
And actually that routine of everyday life allows us to be in the Word a little more, I think. And for me, I've never done anything even close to yours. So I'm not even like, there's no comparison here, but in my own life, it's like, I think when I hunt, I'm going to be in the Word every morning. And then I find like a week later, I'm like, I was never in the Word. I got so distracted with all these other things.
Yeah.
So it is interesting how that can happen. So that time of isolation and loneliness brought you back, or?
Yeah, no, it did. And this brings me to like one of my first really cool stories. So here I am, I'm alone. Pretty much how me and Blake separated is we were coming out of the mountain in Hot Springs. He calls me and he says like, dude, I got to go home. So I hiked like a mile back and we sat there and we talked for a while and came to the conclusion that he was ready to get off and that was okay. And we just had a little conversation and split ways. And he went one way and I went the other, and it was a weird feeling, man. I was all alone, and like now I'm like, man, like, I don't want to harp on this too much. Like, if you watch this, dude, it is completely okay. Like the way it turned out it was for the best. Like it is okay. But yeah, like in that moment, and I was scared because I'm like, man, I was gonna have a partner and now I don't have anyone, and now it's like this weird feeling of, can I do this? Like there was doubt, and so I'm walking along and I came up on this shelter. And if you don't know anything about the Appalachian Trail, there's a series of shelters that go down the entire trail. And
what's a shelter? Explain a shelter to us.
It's just a 3-walled wooden structure. It has
almost it looks like a horse, like open air barn type thing?
Kind of like that. Usually they're off the ground. Some of them have like 2 levels. Some of them are nicer than others.
Really?
Yeah. And they're really good. Little places to hang out and or sleep. But I came across one and there's, 3 or 4 guys in there and their sons. And, we start talking for a little bit and I tell them I'm through hiking, and then they're asking me how my day's going. And I'm like, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, this has been a pretty rough day. Like, this has been a really like hard day for me. Everyone else hiking with just quit. And like, I don't know what to do now. Like I feel like I'm lost, so we just started talking, and then somehow this podcast worked its way into the conversation, and then ordinary movement, really. And then these guys were like, well, we weren't going to tell you this, but, I guess since you brought it up, like we're all 4 pastors of different churches in Alabama. And at the time I was in Georgia. Oh, I'm sorry. I was in North Carolina. And they were just up there with their kids, just taking this little retreat.
Really?
And I think now that I think about it, that was like the first interaction I had with like, other believers on trail. And that was huge. Like that whole situation, that conversation we had, like it's what I needed. And I remember as soon as it happened, I texted you. Like I texted you the complete story, but pretty much they just prayed for me and they were like, hey, like I want you to use this next week of loneliness to really take time and reflect with the Lord and get your mind straight and like get ready for what you're about to do.
Yeah.
Because like at the time it was pretty easy. And what I didn't know is it was going to get a heck of a lot harder, really hard.
Yeah.
So that was crazy.
So there's so much here. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to try not to comment too much on things because people don't want to hear my thoughts. They want to hear what you have to say. But that's incredible how God worked in that situation. And we have 6 months of your life to unpack here in one podcast. Maybe we'll do a 2-part. We'll see how long this goes.
Okay.
But so it's hard to know where to start, right? So it's like, where do you even start and how do you do this? So my question to you, and then we'll kind of weave in and out. We may go, it may be a forward, backward type thing. So you said when you would listen to the podcast, I don't know if you use the words embarrassed or ashamed or something like that, but because you had preconceived notions.
Yeah.
break down some of those for us. Like, what were some of the things that you came in thinking? Like, what are the things that you heard yourself say, or what are the things that you thought that ended up not being the case? There's probably a bunch of them.
All right. Well, let's jump into that.
Yeah.
So let me just start out by saying what I planned on doing versus what I did do, just to kind of give this podcast more of like an outline.
Mm-hmm.
So I planned on starting in Georgia and hiking all the way to Maine, one continuous footpath all the way there. And it's considered an Appalachian Trail no-bow hike or northbound hike. And that's what I planned on doing. What I didn't know, or what I did know at the time, is I started very late. I mean, I started at the end of April, almost, April 29th. So, I mean, that was, for anybody that knows anything about this, most people start around March 1st. So I started late.
Almost 2 months late.
Yeah, almost 2 months late.
And you didn't know that going in?
I did know it, but I thought, oh, I'm young. It doesn't matter. Like, I'll just catch up. And no, that's not how that works. I mean, some people do. Don't get me wrong, but not me. And so pretty much what happened was I started hiking, and it got hot. And if you live in Virginia this summer, you know it was the hottest and driest summer Virginia ever had on record.
Really?
Yeah. And so it didn't rain for... it didn't rain for 28 days in Virginia. And so it got bad, like really bad, because all the water sources dried up, and all the water sources dried up. It's 100 degrees during the day. It's only getting down to like 80, 90 degrees at night.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was horrible. And for some reason that made the bugs go crazy. So like you're just getting eaten alive 24/7, and then there's no water. So you have to carry water for 15 miles every day. It was getting rough, like really rough. And so 810 miles in, me and the group of people I was with, we decided that we needed to flip up to Maine for a few different reasons. That being a big reason. The other big reason was Mount Katahdin closes at October 15th.
What is Mount? Tell us the significance of that.
Okay, so Mount Katahdin is the northernmost terminus of the AT. It's the mountain you end on or start on if you're going Sobo. And so they closed Baxter State Park for snow, and like winter comes early up there. It's pretty far north, and we didn't think we were going to make it. And so we decided to flip up to Maine and hike back down to that road gap in Virginia.
Hey, real fast,
Sure.
For my sake and the viewers,
Yes.
You said you were 800 and some miles in.
810.
And how many total miles is it?
It's 2,200. Well, it's 2,197 miles to be exact.
How many you said? 2,000?
2,197.
Okay. So you're about a third of the way done.
Yeah, right around a third.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, continue on. So you flipped it. Okay.
Yeah, so flipped. And this is, just some people get confused. This is still considered a Appalachian Trail Thru-Hike. Like, it's called a flip-flop. It's completely allowed. It's in the, rule book. It's okay. There
is a rule book, huh?
Yeah, there's
unofficial.
What's considered a Thru-Hike and what's not considered. So you have to do it within one calendar year, and you'd have to do. Technically, you only have to do over 2,000 miles to be considered a Thru-Hiker. Just because that is true. Things happen. Like every now and again, like a mile might get skipped. Last I kept track, I think I skipped 12 miles.
Really?
Yeah.
And how would you do that?
I know I outright skipped 8 miles with my mom. She had to take a shuttle back when she was hiking with us.
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable sending her with some strange dude. So I ended up skipping 8 miles, and definitely eats me up, which is crazy.
Really?
You wouldn't think it would, but it does. It really does. I'm going to have to go back and finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, and then I skipped 3 miles up in the Wildcat Mountains because I met some guys who actually used to work at Beaver Creek. And,
really?
Yeah. So Wildcat is a ski resort, and I met some guys who just happened to be up there working on the lift, and they were like, "Hey, why don't we just fire up this lift and you can just take it down to the bottom of the mountain and skip these to 3 miles." And I was like, dude, actually, that sounds awesome. Why not? Why not? I get
Who gets that chance?
Yeah, it's it was cool. And there was another guy that worked at Beaver Creek at the bottom. They wanted me to meet. All that's irrelevant. Yes.
Well, it's
miles.
really relevant. And again, I know your backstory. Some people do. Weston's getting over a cold, by the way.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And what people may not know is Weston is actually living in Colorado now, and he works at Beaver Creek Mountain, which is a ski resort. And so that's the relevance of that. So that's actually really cool, man.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Yeah, because it's just so random. Like in the middle of the woods, you meet somebody. Whatever.
Yeah, super cool.
All that's irrelevant. But yeah, so anyways, that's the outline. Sorry, that's where we were. Okay, yeah. So that's the outline of what happened. And there's a lot more that goes into that. But
sure.
Let's see some other preconceived notions I had. I know I said on that podcast, the first one, like, oh, I'm going to sleep good every night. Dude, that was a lie. And like, also,
that was a lie.
This was like so ignorant of me at the time, but I went out there with like this nice hammock setup that weighed like 8 pounds. And I was like, nope, I'm going to be sleeping great. I'm not going to be getting wet, or any of that. What I should have understood is that, you know, Georgia and the entire East Coast, it stays between like 60 and 100% humidity. I was wet every day, and there was no getting dry. You couldn't dry out anything.
No, I couldn't do it.
And like with this hammock, Jeremy, this is terrible, and it's like hilarious. But the condensation, leads like water droplets to the top of your tarp. Well, then when it starts raining, all that does is make those droplets come down onto you. So when it was raining, I was getting wet no matter, like, regardless, it's raining inside of my sleeping setup.
Because it's single walled.
Yeah, it was single walled. And so, because, you know, I just was naive. I didn't know. And so.
How would you?
No, yeah. So the first month, I just got soaked every night. That was it. Yeah. And luckily, it was warm enough to where it wasn't a huge issue. But let's see, the first 3 weeks, it rained 18 days. So I was wet all the time.
Oh, yeah, I would have quit.
Yeah, man.
So tell me, so what did you switch to from a hammock to what would you do?
I switched to a Big Agnes tent, Fly Creek 1, bike conversion. It's actually, I mean, I can pull up.
Yeah, Weston brought some of his stuff. Yeah, if you want to pull anything out. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much a tent is going to help, but you can maybe. Yeah, anything you want to show us? We this is show and tell, baby. So, let's see that pack. I'm sure it's nice and clean.
Yeah, no, it's not. Sorry, I need to talk into the mic. Yeah, it's not clean. Also, like, it's worth mentioning, I started the trail with, my pack was like 33, 35 pounds. This is what I finished. You can tell me how much that weighs.
I mean, do you know?
It probably.
No, don't tell me. Do you know?
Do I know the exact? No.
Approximate? I'm saying range? 18 pounds.
18 pounds? No, I would say this right now weighs probably 11 pounds, maybe 10.
Wow.
Yeah, and so this was everything that I finished with, excluding food and water, and also this sweatshirt, which I kept in here, and this was my pillow.
Wow. So look at that. It started white?
Yeah, it was white, and it's all torn up now and all this.
No, it's actually in better shape than I thought it would be.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, after 2,100 miles of hiking, I just thought maybe this thing would be destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I felt like it was pretty messed up, but
that's awesome.
It held out okay. Yeah, hyperlight equipment. Do I recommend this pack? No. Do I recommend this pack? No.
You don't?
No. I think there's way better pack companies out there.
So what's the better pack?
Man, that's for you to decide.
No, I'm not asking I'm asking what you think.
Okay, I think Neighborhood Packs, they make a really good pack. It's a small company out of Colorado, and I think they took everything that was wrong with this pack and made it better.
Made it right.
I'm not sponsored.
Is there any packs that like we would know the name of?
Yeah, Osprey packs are pretty cool.
Oh, Ospreys are good?
Yeah, they're really good because they have a lifetime warranty. I'll just sneak in this story because I think it's hilarious. But in Shenandoah National Park, I'm hiking with Rocky, my buddy, and they have a really bad pack rat problem. And in the middle of the night, a rat came, and here, I'll just use my pack as an example. It chewed this strap off, his hip belt off, this strap off, and so he was left with one single strap. And he has about, 50-pound pack. So he was one strap in it for like 2 days.
Was he able to get it fixed, or what did he do?
My dad actually went and got him a new pack and brought it to him, which is super cool.
Your dad's awesome.
Yeah,
so your mom and dad, again, we're jumping around everywhere. It doesn't matter. It's just a conversation about the AT.
For sure.
So your mom and dad actually, I think super cool in the whole journey. Mm-hmm. Like they've really adopted it as like part of their story too.
Oh, yeah.
And so tell us about like some of that.
Oh man, they were so helpful.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, like my parents especially, they were extremely helpful, but even like my grandparents too. Like, I mean, there was a few times where like I was I was out of luck. Like I came to one part in Virginia, and this was like 2 weeks before the trail was over, and like this is like trusting in God right here. Okay, this is one of those stories, but I thought I knew everything. You would think that after, let's just say, 5.5 months of doing this, I would know how much food and water I needed. I should know, right? Well, I got to one of the wayside places that I was going to resupply at, and they had closed for the season 2 hours before I got there. And
Well,
so
how would you know that?
I know I maybe it wasn't completely my fault, but here I am, 2 weeks away from finishing, and I find myself with zero food and about 40 miles to the next spot to get food. And so I'm like, all right, either I wake up tomorrow and do an ultra marathon with zero food and go get food, or I call for help. And so I called for help. And Granddad, the next day, he brought me and Rocky a full resupply of food, which
Wow.
was just amazing.
Yeah, your grandfather treats you like gold, man.
I know he does.
You're a lucky young man.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
Bill, if you're listening, you're a good grandfather, man.
Yeah, dude just
Yeah.
dropped everything and came brought us food.
Yeah, and when you came out here, he drove you out too, right? Like, was that 30 hours of driving you guys drove together? Yeah, he's awesome, man. Bill, you're great.
Great guy.
What were we saying? Oh, lessons learned, naivety going into it.
Yeah.
So you changed your sleeping system to a tent. Was it double walled at that point or no? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Double walled. It's freestanding, which is not common. So like all these thru hikers, they think that they need to use these ultralight tents that weigh nothing, and they're single walled and use like trekking poles.
Yeah.
But like you get soaking wet. Like it goes back to the thing I'm saying with the condensation, rain falling, and you get soaking wet.
I know it oh too well. I don't know it 6 months oh too well, but I know it. I know it very well.
And especially on the East Coast, it would work fine out here, but on the East Coast where it's so humid, it's so crazy that I would ever think that that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So the
extra weight is well worth it.
Well, I mean, extra weight. My tent only weighs 1.5 pounds.
Yeah.
Which is like
nothing.
That's considerably light for a freestanding tent.
No, it's super light.
Yeah, and they actually don't make it anymore.
Is it in there?
Yeah, here, let me pull it out.
Yeah.
I guess we can do a little unpacking.
Yeah, let's see some of the pack stuff.
I really don't carry anything. Like towards the end of the trail, I got rid of everything, and I was considered an ultralight hiker, I guess. My whole pack was like 18 pounds, maybe.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
So I was right, 18 pounds. I was right, but I was wrong.
Yeah,
I was trying to guess.
Water.
I think you told me 18 pounds, so I was trying to cheat earlier. All right, so that's what you cooked with. That's a jet boil.
This is the jet boil.
Anybody that hunts would know that. Oh, that's nice, man.
It has seen some things.
But that says something for jet boil. That thing lasted for 6 months. But you didn't start out with a jet boil, did you?
No, I did.
You did?
I wasn't going to, and then you convinced me to. Great idea. So glad I did, because even I don't want to get too big into like the gear stuff, but like even when I didn't have gas, it has like these holes on the bottom, and you pull the sleeve off and you put it in a fire, and the coils.
Oh, you can put it right on the fire?
You can put it right on the fire. Wow. I took the sleeve off. If you can see right here, one time I didn't, and it caught on fire. Yeah. So like there's that. My coffee cup.
So Weston, I have to say,
what's up?
I did tell you not a different sleep system too. I know nothing about the AT, but I tried to convince you out of the. I showed you my big Agnes when you were at my house.
I know. I needed to find out on myself.
I just feel good that I got one thing right. That's all.
Oh yeah. No, you
I wouldn't have got anything else right. Trust me.
Yeah. This is my food bag. Put all my food in this little bag.
Okay, so it's like a dry bag.
Yeah, it has an air tag on it in case a bear was to take it.
What is that? Is that an Osprey?
No, so this is a Cedar Summit.
Oh, okay, Cedar
river
Summit
bag.
Yep.
You can see there's some mouse chews on it. No mice ever got through it. This was just my doohickey bag. This has everything that is like tape, Pepto-Bismol, Imodium.
Yeah.
It weighs nothing. I think there's some Advil in there that I really never took.
So it's like first aid, etc.
A chair.
Oh, you carried a chair.
Dude, so I didn't start with it because all my friends were like, "You're never going to use that." All right, 1 month in, I'm like, "Dude, I need the chair," and I'm so glad I had it. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like this weighs a little over 1 pound.
I think maybe even less. I have the same chair.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not much. They're amazing. They're super comfortable for what they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I really
Helinox ground chair. Smells wonderful.
Oh yeah.
There's some good aroma happening in the studio.
I feel
I'm
so
glad
bad.
you guys can't smell it.
I'm glad too.
It's like a smoke / BO smell. I would say. Yeah,
it's like a lot of.
It's quite nice. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm used to it.
This is the tent.
That's the tent. Oh, yeah. Cool. That's amazing.
Tiny,
so it's a one person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet.
This thing is nice.
Yeah, look at that. Big Agnes. Okay, is that it?
So I didn't bring my quilt, but I have it in
so is this titanium?
Yes, that's titanium. I didn't bring my lightened equipment quilt, but strongly recommend. It's my favorite piece of gear.
The quilt.
Favorite piece. It kept me warm.
So what's it? So for somebody that doesn't know, a quilt versus a sleeping bag.
Yeah. So the thought behind that is down compresses and it doesn't insulate you from the bottom. And so a quilt gets rid of that down on the underside of you. So you can just lay down onto your sleeping mat, which does insulate you. And then you have like a blanket over top. And so you save weight. And especially when it's hot, you can stick one of your legs out or it's what you need for a through hike. And also it doesn't capture all that smell. Like my quilt, I never washed it.
Really?
And it really didn't smell bad.
Oh, I'm sure it smells great.
Oh, I mean, it smells fine.
I think maybe you couldn't smell it.
Yeah.
Is your sleeping pad in there? Did you have a pad?
Yeah, I've got my sleeping pad. What'd
you run?
So this is a Nemo Tensor pad.
Oh, you ran a Nemo, huh?
Yeah, this is the extra wide one. Works great. I love it. Weighs, you can feel how much it weighs. It doesn't weigh anything.
Yeah.
Nice.
So versus Thermarest, huh?
Yeah.
You like Nemo better?
I like this pad. The only thing I don't like about it is it's very loud. You're like rolling around.
They kind of all are if they're insulated at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the toughest thing to get used to. Guys, I'm not a through hiker, and I'm not even not really even a backpacker. The only reason I know this stuff is because I elk hunt, and so I backpack in. So I have all this ultralight stuff. I really feel like I could do part of it. I mean, I'm equipped, man. I'm ready to roll,
yeah.
But I'm not doing it. There's no way I'm doing the AT Trail. No way. You may be able to convince me to do the Colorado Trail.
Oh, you could do the Colorado Trail easy.
Because then it's not all the rain and humidity and bugs. That's the part. I mean, first off, I don't know if I'm tough enough to do it, period. But second off, I couldn't do that. Like your parents sent me pictures or you sent me pictures, and then your mother would send she's really close. His mom is really close with my wife, Jessica. So Emily would send like videos and stuff, or Chad would send stuff. Man, it looked miserable sometimes.
It was
that
miserable.
Wet. There's nothing worse than waking up wet or going to bed wet. Nothing worse. Knowing that it's not going to be dry when you wake up.
Yeah. No, and even to touch on that a little more, when you hang up your wet clothes at night, they get wetter because of the humidity.
Couldn't do it.
It's crazy.
All right. So more naivety. I just want to move us along. I could talk about this for hours. I'm just afraid our guests won't want to hear it for hours.
That's fair. Yeah.
Go ahead. They probably will want to hear it for hours. Who am I kidding? Maybe. We'll do 2 parts if we need to. Okay. What else? Sleeping system, you said. Cooking system.
Okay. Yeah. I'll touch on this a little bit too, since we're here. Is this is one thing me and Rocky talked about a lot. Let me touch on that real quick too. So my buddy Rocky, I met him the 3rd day of my hike. And we finished together.
Wow.
So I lost him for 1 week, and then he got sick in New Hampshire, and I lost him for 8 or 9 days, and then we found each other again. But other than that, we hiked the entire trail together.
Did you plan to find each other? Because you have cell phone a lot on those trails, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So were you trying to find each other, or it just happened?
What do you mean, like when we lost each other?
Yeah.
No, we were trying to find each other.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to just be like, hey, let me just stop hiking for 2 days so you can catch up. Because it's just not what you do.
No, I there's no way I could mentally do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be too tough. So then what, anything else that when you look back at the video, you're kind of like,
oh, sorry. This is where I was going with that.
Yeah.
So anyways, me and Rocky were talking about this a lot. And he's what you call a purist. And so first of all, he did the Pinhoti Trail up to the AT. So he hiked 2,700 miles. He's crazy.
Wow.
But a purist is somebody who has to see every single blaze of the AT. So Rocky didn't skip a single footstep. What you'll find is hard because there's like trail closures, there's redirects, there's stuff like that. And like you can't skip, or like even when there's bad weather and you have to take a bad weather detour, like no, you just have to wait it out and then hike across. So like,
Wow.
yeah, Rocky's crazy for that. Mad respect, bro. But that wasn't me. I skipped 12 miles. Not a purist. But
I think you're fine, bud.
I know it's fine, but he's in a separate group, which I cannot say I'm in. But anyways, he really struggled a lot when we were about to flip, because it's like, is that something a purist can do? And we ended up deciding that it's okay to change plans, don't change your goals. And so like that's a huge thing we had to like learn, is that you have all these plans, these goals that you like, I'm going to do it this way and that's how it's going to be done. And that, that's kind of how I started it. And then you realize that like, no, there's a lot of things that change. And, like, I don't want to touch on this too much, but even this hurricane that came through, like, I'm not sure how much y'all pay attention to that, but this hurricane wiped out 1/3 of the entire Appalachian Trail. It is no longer there. That's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
And like, even looking back, like my dad was trying to convince me to do the trail next year. And like, I look at it next year, there is no trail. Like the ATC says that it might be 10 years before you can do like a legit through hike again.
Wow.
Which you can get like, I mean, sections of the trail are gone. I mean, I don't know how to like say that other than it got wiped away. Like
Wow.
it no longer is here. And like a couple hostels we stayed at, gone. Like swept away.
Incredible.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. So, I mean, I think about our experience and I look at other people's experience that were hiking south, and then they get halfway done and figure out they can't finish. Like that's hard.
That would be terrible.
So yeah, keep your goals the same. Our goal was to finish the Appalachian Trail. It was to hike the entire thing, and we did. But the way we did it changed. The plans changed. Like got a different plan.
Man, that's so good. It's so good in life. And it actually, when you're saying that, it reminded me, I say it often, and I had a really hard time with this. And I'll be quick because this isn't what this is about, but ordinary movement. It's like we have to stay on mission. God put this mission and vision on our heart, but we can change the methods and how we get there. Right. But that was really hard because it was like, no, this is what I think it should look like, but maybe it doesn't have to look exactly like that as long as we're staying true to the mission and vision. So it's actually confirming to hear you say that. And I love that. And it's so true in life. Like there's so many times that in our head, we have these preconceived crazy notions about how something should look. And in the end, it's like, it never could have worked that way to begin with. Like, well, how'd you even think that?
Yeah.
So we had to be willing to change our methods, or as you say, the plan, but not the goal. So anyhow, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hold on. Like even to touch on that a little more is like, for one, Dad was telling me, wait a year. And I mean, fighting that is hard because if you know anything about my dad, he's an extremely wise person. And I love like listening to him. I do whatever he says because I know like he's right.
Chad, you hear that?
Yeah.
Hear that?
No, I mean, he knows that.
Yeah.
And so I just felt so strongly.
I think there was a time
heart.
he may not have known that.
Well, he didn't, clearly he didn't know.
He knows it
time.
Now. He knows it. No, I'm saying that you would do anything he said.
No, for sure. I mean, I know now, but yeah, like that was hard. Like to go against what my father was telling me to do. And I mean, that was like, oh, Dad, I'm sorry. Like, I really need to do this now. And like, it's so important. I don't really know why it's important yet, but I just know I need to do it this year. And like, even when it came down to it, like I was so stubborn. I'm like, no, I'm going to go south to north. And that's how I'm going to do it. All right. And because for a while I was like, what if I go from north to south? But if I would have done that, I couldn't have finished because 1/3 of the trail isn't there anymore.
Wow.
And so it's like, even that stubbornness was protecting me from being able to like finish to do it.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how it all worked out. It was really just God's hand of protection over me. And just guidance. It was so crazy.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Anyways.
So what boots did you wear? I know the answer. I set that up.
Yeah. So I got them right here. These right here, they're Chacos.
Oh, those are not boots, brother.
These are not boots, and this is what I wore on the Appalachian Trail. This is my second pair. So I started with Hoka's, and
Hoka like hiking boots?
No, yeah, Hoka, just hiking shoes, trail runners, whatever you want to call them. And I love those shoes. And I had hiked, I don't know, maybe 300 miles in my first pair, and and I loved them. Thought they were great. I thought that's what I was going to through hike the AT in. And then I quickly found out that the amount of cushion they have doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter because you're wearing them all day, every day, and it compresses and it doesn't have time to like stretch out again. And so you have this compressed foam that no longer provides you any cushion. And so I started developing this thing. I have it here. It's called Morton's Neuroma, and you can research it. It's the craziest thing. And it feels like there's a rock in your shoe. It feels like there's a pebble underneath your foot all the time. And
Sounds great.
Yeah, like I looked up on the internet. I'm like, why does it feel like there's a pebble in my shoe all the time? And they're like, oh, well, that's this. And like, that's the main, that's the main side effect. And so I had to get rid of those. And I just happened, my mom had been close by Chacos, and I've hiked in Chacos my whole life. And I'm like, yeah, let me just wear them for a few days, see what happens. And so Chacos, they have very high arch, a very high arch foot. They're extremely breathable. So like, that's another big thing. When your feet are wet all day, like you can ask Rocky, who got trench foot, and he's got horrible foot fungus still. Sorry, bro. Yeah.
Throwing him under the bus.
Yeah, I'm going to throw him under the bus.
He ain't going to get a date now.
No, he's not. But, it's okay. But yeah, so Chacos, man, they saved my life, probably, saved my life. But I would definitely not have been able to finish the trail without them. Yeah, people thought it was crazy too. They're like, dude, you're wearing sandals? And I'm like, no, like, you don't understand. This is the best thing ever. And then like after a while, I just kept saying like, Jesus wore sandals. And then
I don't think you had a choice.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I just thought that was funny. So then for like the rest of the trail, and anybody would say anything, I'd just be like, yeah, Jesus wore sandals. That's why I'm wearing them.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean,
but not only that, I see people in Colorado wearing sandals all the time hiking.
Yeah. But to only wear sandals for, 2,200 miles, people thought it was crazy.
But those are more like Jesus. I call those Jesus sneakers more than
Jesus sneakers.
Yeah, when people have them on, those are Jesus sneakers. I mean, they're not like flip flops. I mean, they're almost like they're really they hold on. That's crazy. So you hiked it in sandals.
Yeah. That was my second pair. The first pair, I squeezed probably 3,000 miles out of them hiking. Wow. Which, like, if you know anything about trail runners, you get 400, 500 miles out of them. A great pair, maybe like 800 miles. A pair of leather hiking boots, 1,000 miles. But no, the Chacos, 3,000 miles. And then these ones have about 800. They're not as good as quality as my first one. Chaco do better.
I may have to contact Chacos before this podcast comes out and see if they want to advertise this segment.
Yeah, they should.
They totally should.
They really should. Yeah, I should have gotten an advertisement probably. But
that's all. Maybe you can send the podcast and get a free pair. So tell me about trail names.
Okay.
What are they? First off, I mean, is somebody listening?
Yeah. So just the nature of this, you're in the woods, you're meeting a lot of interesting people. Anyone from, you could be meeting a convicted felon. You could be, homeless people, tweakers, great people.
What's a tweaker?
Somebody who lives in the woods and does drugs.
Really? It's somebody that is like homeless woods person.
Yeah, just drug addict.
Really?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of
Are there a lot of tweakers?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Tweakers everywhere, especially in the AT. Yeah. So trail names are kind of a popular thing because I don't want to be sharing. Like, I don't know who these people are. I don't want to give them my real name.
Dude, we need to make a T-shirt that says "Tweakers Everywhere."
Probably.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't. Yeah,
but yeah, so that's kind of what I understand, like trail names to originate. Also, it's just kind of like a fun thing. Like you're hiking together, and like you do something stupid, or something happens, or whatever, and you get named after it. So I'll tell you mine first. It's a funny story. And this is actually going to be the third time that it's on YouTube now. So you can find this story elsewhere.
Okay.
But yeah, my trail name's Bun. If you hiked the AT with me, or if you've met me in the last 6 months, you already know that. So hello again, if you know me by that. But this is kind of how that happened. So first week of hiking, I'm hiking with Blake, and a big thing on the Appalachian Trail is trail magic. And so trail magic is just things that people leave on the side of the trail, like whether it be, food, soda, beer, anything for hikers to take, because people just like hiking, like helping us out. So we're walking down trail, and there's a bag hanging directly on the trail, maybe 6 inches off, about 4 feet high. It has a smiley face on it. And we're like, dude, sweet. There's trail magic here. And we open it up, and it's filled with honey buns and beer. And we're like, dude, this is sick. And we just grab it all. And we're walking to the next shelter, and we sit down and we start eating. We're just sitting there drinking these beers, eating these honey buns. Everything is great. And there's this guy there, and he's like, we're telling him all about it. We're like, dude, this is awesome. Like, yo, do you want some of this? Like, man, this is the coolest thing ever. And then, he's watching all this unfold. All right. And this other guy comes up, and he's like, man, I'm having the worst day of my life. I'm like, what's going on, dude? And he's like, I swear, like in the middle of the night, somebody just came up. They stole all my food. I'm like, oh my God. Who would do something like that, dude? Like, that's terrible. Like, really? And like, we're talking, and he's just like, yeah, man, some real like, pieces of crap out here. And he like looks down and sees us eating these honey buns and whatever. And he's like, why did you take my food? And we're like, oh, dude, like, I swear we thought this was trail magic. Bro, it was a bag on the side of the. We explained it all to him, and he's like, "Oh man, like it's fine. Like it's fine. Like I'm not that mad." But at the time, he was furious. But once we kind of explained to him that, like, dude, you left it on the. What did you think was going to happen? And why did you only have honey buns and beer?
Who brings honey buns and beer?
Yeah, come on, dude. Like you got to see. Yeah, but he understood. Everything was fine.
It wasn't like dehydrated food and
no,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and so this guy that had saw all of this unfold, and he thought it was hilarious. All right, I never saw that dude again. He went on ahead of me. Okay, that story got pretty trail famous, and like everyone kind of started to hear about it. And flash forward like 3 weeks, we were at Sassafras Shelter coming out of the Knock in North Carolina, and it's a huge shelter. It's a double decker, and that's kind of where we met up with the May 1st bubble, so to speak. There's 20 thru-hikers at that shelter.
Wow.
And so we're all just hanging out. We had a fire going. Everyone's just having a great time. We're talking. And this old man stands up and he's like, guys, I've got the funniest story to tell you. Man, you have to hear this. And so everyone gathers around. We start listening. And he starts telling this story. And I'm like, stop talking. And I stood up and I'm like, I am the guy that you're talking about right now. Where did you hear that? How did you hear that? Like, what? And so I stood up and I told the story, and somebody recorded me and posted it on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So
yeah,
your name was Bun.
Is Bun, yeah. So that's how I got. And then like a week later, I was in Smoky Mountains, and I didn't have a trail name yet. And then my buddy Riggs was like, yeah, you're Honey and you're Bun. And then, Honey left, but Bun stuck it out. And so then, awesome. The rest of the trail, and then, ended up being me and Rocky. So Bun and Rocky, it's funny how that works out.
Yeah, that is cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool. What was your mom's trail name?
Oh, okay. Okay, so my mom, she came out to hike with us the first time in Damascus, and she was just begging for a trail name, and that's what she wanted. Mom, I'm apologizing in advance. Dad was the one who told me to speak on this, but
I don't even know it. So Emily, if it's not good, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's gonna be great. So she's just begging for a trail name, and so she goes to use the bathroom one morning, and just in case you don't know, what you're supposed to do when you defecate in the woods is to dig a 6 to 8 inch hole, bury it, and cover it up. It's called a cat hole. Leave no trace.
Right.
Nobody wants to look at your crap on the side of the trail.
That's right.
Nobody wants that. Anyways, Mom didn't know that. She just dropped a deuce right on the top of the ground.
Emily.
Paper towels everywhere, like left a mess. And then somebody saw it, and they're like, dude, like, who did that? And then Mom's like, oh, that was me. And they're like, yeah, your name's Topsoil now.
Topsoil. That's hilarious.
So that's
Topsoil.
Yeah. So if y'all see Emily, call her Topsoil.
Emily, I swear I did not know that. Weston just told me I needed to ask this question, so I asked it. So you can blame him. Where do we go from here, Weston? Let's talk about. I think we could talk forever, right? There's a million stories we could go through.
Absolutely.
But let's. since this is a podcast about our faith,
Yeah.
I mean, what did you go into this thinking, kind of in a faith way, like as far as like what you would get out of it or what you thought it would be like? You talked a little about that,
Yeah,
but
I
then
did.
tell me some of the lessons that maybe you walked away with or
Oh, man.
Let's take it to the spiritual side. What
For sure.
spiritual components did you learn or take away from this?
Let me just get into that right away. So I first said on the first podcast, like, I'm going to be a vessel for Jesus, sharing his love to everyone. And, this just goes back to the harsh reality of this world and just how naive I was. Never once did I think about this until I was there. No one's going to take religious advice from a 20-year-old that's homeless in the woods and hasn't showered in 3 weeks and has scraggly beard and like that's something I never thought about until I was there. And then like every time you bring it up, this guy's like, man, I'm not out here to hear about that. Like, oh, yeah, like that makes sense. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. But then, what I came to realize is that like it's not those random interactions that really matter. Of course, I was nice to everybody and showing love and care and talk to people when they needed somebody to talk to, which is crazy. Some people, they just pour out their entire life to you in the middle of the woods because they'll never see you again, and they know that. So just being somebody they can talk to is really important. And it's definitely something I did, but like the people around you is definitely where the impact I think lies the most. And I don't want to get too much into like other people's lives, but there was, certainly people that I hiked with for a long period of time that I was able to touch in that certain way. Which is, that's awesome. Let's see some like lessons the Lord taught me. I mean, patience. Like that's the first one, bro. Like patience. You don't really think about this till you're out there, but it's boring, like you have nothing to do but stare at the ground for 16 hours out of every day.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're in your mind for every day, all day long. There is no real distractions. You can listen to podcasts and you can listen to books or you can listen to music, but for 16 hours all day long, you get sick of it. And so eventually you just have to be in your thoughts, and that's okay. Like I got like let's say probably the first 2 months, that was really hard for me. And like, I needed distractions. I didn't want to think about anything. And then I wrote it down about when I got to Vermont. I just woke up one day and I was like, I'm at peace. Everything's okay.
Yeah.
And like, it was such a weird thing. Like, let me read it to you, actually. I'll read it out.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I did keep a journal, but I only journaled just things I thought that mattered. So I didn't take a constant journal. But so this was Wednesday, September 4th. Okay, so it had been a little more than 2 months. But I woke up and I said, let it be known that today I found peace. I finally know how to live in sync with the land surrounding me. I no longer fight it. I finally gained the respect needed to truly enjoy the world at my footsteps. True inner peace is found when a man can learn to walk with the rotation of the earth and not against it. I wrote that down. I thought that was good.
I like it.
Yeah, and so I feel like from that day on, I was just kind of like, nothing to worry about. Like,
so what was the culminating factor that got you there?
It had finally, so it went from being hard because you're starting out, and then it was hot and hard, and then flipped up to Maine. And then I found out what it really meant to hike in hard terrain. And if you know anything about hiking in Maine, you walk through water all day long.
Really?
You're walking through water, sometimes ankle deep, sometimes knee deep. And it's not just water, it's muddy water. So you got mud all up in between your toes, giving you blisters. You got it all over your legs, your feet, and then you're not showering. So then that accumulates for weeks at a time. It
Sounds
gets
great.
Nasty. And that's hard, man. That's really hard. And even in the summertime in Maine, it's cold. It gets really cold. And so it's cold, wet, muddy, miserable. All right. And then when you think it can't get any worse, you get into the White Mountain Range of New Hampshire. And then you find out what really rough terrain looks like. It just felt like it had been bad, harder, harder, and it was just getting like so difficult. And then all of a sudden, you get off of Mount Moosilauke at the bottom of New Hampshire, and you get into Vermont, and it's like, whoa! All of a sudden, the hard is done. Like the hardest parts of the trail, the hardest elevation gain is done. And so from Vermont back to Virginia, it was just like peace.
Wow.
And it was amazing. It was great. Me and Rocky we had so much fun every day. We started like rock climbing on trail, which looking back, oh man, I'm sorry, Rocky. I know I was supposed to say that. Your mom's going to kill me. But we survived. Yeah, it's probably really stupid, but we just started like free soloing these boulders and cliff faces just because you get bored, man. Like you get bored walking every day. Like, so we had to switch it up a little bit. And that was definitely like something that was so much fun. And I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we didn't get hurt, but it was kind of stupid. But yeah, it was just like this peace that just came over us. And, like I had this conversation with my buddy Riggs, who he was a believer. Well, he's a believer, and he was also a missionary in Tanzania. Super cool. Great guy. And I was struggling because I'm like, dude, I feel like not that I don't need God anymore, but for a while it was so hard that I needed God every footstep of every day, or else like I was going to die. I mean, like, that's not even exaggeration. Like some of those days I was about to die, like hypothermia and all that stuff.
People do die on the trail.
Yeah. And like not having food for, a certain amount of days, like there's very good chances you can die in those situations. And so I was just relying on faith so much. And then all of a sudden, like, it's easy. And then it's like, I just felt like guilty because I'm like, not that I don't need God, but I feel like I'm not in this struggle anymore. Like, it's okay. And then he said this one thing that I had to carry with me for months. He's like, it's okay. Walk in grace. Like, that's what you do. You walk in the grace of the Lord. And like, that's, be thankful, be grateful, and praise him. Be thankful that you're not in that struggle anymore, and be thankful that he brought you out of it, and that, like, you don't have to be in this fight the entire time. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so that was a big thing that he said.
I think that correlates well to our faith.
Mm-hmm.
I think that most people listening, if you're honest with yourself, you grew in your faith the most when you were in a struggle or in a tough place.
Absolutely.
I know you're talking about a trail and a physical struggle, but sometimes it's mental, sometimes it's struggle, sometimes it's emotional, but those things that bring us closer to God. And then when we're past them, we have the ability to fall right back into the same pattern we were in, versus we could choose to stay in that grace and stay in that routine of staying close to God. And so I think that's one of the greatest ways God moves in our lives is through hardships. So I think that's obviously there was a spiritual journey there too, but it was physical for you in a big way.
Oh yeah.
But that's a great correlation, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was. And like here, I'll even touch on that a little bit deeper, just to like give you like a real example of like kind of what I was feeling in that whole situation. So the day that my hardest day on trail, and it wasn't the hardest because of the terrain or anything. It was early on. I was inexperienced. It had been raining countlessly, and I had norovirus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it kind of sucked. And Rocky stayed with me. Thank you, Rocky. But we were down in, we were in Tennessee. We were in the Rowan Mountains of Tennessee, a really beautiful place. But anyways, we started hiking one morning, and I'm like, dude, I don't feel good. Like, I feel sick. And like, man, that's a scary, scary feeling to have, because I knew that it was going to be at that time it was going to be about 30 miles to any road crossing for me to get out. And so like the only way I'm getting out is if a helicopter picks me up, or I hike out. And I felt like I had the flu, and I was having diarrhea like crazy. My stomach hurt. I had a fever, chills. It was a bad place to be. And so we had walked 5 miles that day, and I'm like, dude, I need to go to bed now. Like, I need to rest or something. Like, I'm starting to freak out. And so I went into the shelter with him, and he had some like NyQuil pills. So I took like 3 or 4 of those and went to sleep. And this is like kind of a side note. But while I was asleep, a bear came into the shelter and stole this guy's food.
Wow.
And so, the guy's name is Where's My, which is funny.
That is funny.
Yeah, shout out to Where's My. That guy's hilarious. But he was complaining earlier that night. He's like, man, I got this store brand peanut butter and it sucks. And I'm like, I can't even eat this. Like, it's terrible. All right. Later that night, bear comes in and steals his food bag and, walks away with it. And the next morning he goes out, everything is gone except for the peanut butter. And he's like, man, this peanut butter is so bad the bear wouldn't eat it. It was hilarious.
That is funny.
Yeah. And,
that's very funny.
But anyways, woke up the next morning, still had a fever, still I was sick. And at that point we were starting to run out of food. I'm like, hey, Rocky, we got to just push it, dude. And we're trying to get to Mountain Harbor Hostel, which, sadly it actually got swept away during the hurricane. But yeah, we started walking then in about 25 miles to get to that road. And that was the biggest day I had done that time. And so about 20 miles in, I was in some serious pain. Just from, I was sick. Like I had a fever, I was having diarrhea, and then 20 miles isn't exactly a short day. Like
no.
At that point, I was in so much pain. And so every single footstep, I'm not even kidding, literally every single footstep, I just had to keep repeating, like, Lord, give me strength. Like, I need strength. Like, Lord, please give me strength. And like Rocky was probably about to kill me because I said that, I don't know, 5,000 times. For the next 5 miles, I had to repeat that every footstep or else I felt like I was going to die. Like it was terrible. And so, that happens. And get to the road crossing, and we were 4 hours late to our reservation for like the room we had requested, so they gave it away.
Oh, wow.
So, which my dad likes to joke about. He's like, there was no room for you at the inn. You're just like Jesus. I'm like, okay, whatever, Dad. But yeah, we ended up sleeping on a picnic table that night.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was like the hardest day I had. And so, God delivered me through that. And, there's a few other times where like I was having a really hard day, and like the one day I had like 2 miles without water, and I was like freaking out, and then like praying, asking God for water, and like it never happened. I just had to keep hiking until I found it. And so like I remember thinking in that time, like, wow, like God just deserted me. Like I couldn't believe it. And I didn't understand. Like at the time, I didn't understand it. And then like I got up to Maine and I had like a few days without food, and like, God deserted me. Like this sucks, whatever. And all that's time I'm just pushing through. And then I did the 4-state challenge, which is hiking from Pennsylvania across Maryland, across West Virginia into Virginia. It's 47 miles. And so I started that, and probably about mile 42, I just had this, like, all of a sudden, all that pain and suffering from those months, like, it came to me in, like, this like, flash of, like, realization that, like, literally brought me to tears at the time. Like, all of a sudden, God showed me why I suffered. And it's because at mile 42 out of 47, I felt completely fine. I felt completely okay. I felt great. I felt like I could do it twice. And like, man, I was just like, wow. So like all that time I thought God had deserted me. No, like it was just like, it was just like, no, you have to go through this hard time, and you have to like go through this because there's going to be a time where it's going to be double as hard as this, but you're going to be ready for it.
Yeah.
And like that was crazy. Like that realization that I had was just like, whoa, that's why that happened. That's why I went 2 days without eating. Like that's why, that water never came. Like, wow, dude, it's crazy.
We are quick to blame God for deserting us, aren't we?
Yeah,
in all areas. All those stories, they just correlate so well with our lives, and even though yours is about the trail, but our walk with the Lord, right? And that's really cool.
Yeah, man.
Well, how do we want to end this? Any final thoughts? Anything you want to mention that we didn't have a chance to, and then kind of maybe I don't know, maybe leave with some encouragement, a final lesson. I don't know.
Oh man, I mean, there's so much we could talk about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we could do this for 10 hours.
I know. Let me look.
Oh, you want to see some notes?
Yeah,
Here, look at some notes.
Make sure I don't miss anything.
All right.
Oh yeah, I want to say this one story right here. So like this, I think, of course there was miracles that happened like every day. Like just like little things here and there, like even the fact that I was able to finish is like, that's a miracle in and of itself.
Sure.
But there was one outright from God miracle that just, it hit me hard. And it was one of the last days too, which is crazy. I was like a week from finishing. And there's a 22-mile stretch in the Shenandoah National Park with zero water. And at the time,
that's hard to believe.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy because there's water everywhere. The trail doesn't go over any. It's whatever. Anyways, started it with 2 liters of water, and I drank those 2 liters. About 10 miles in, so I still had, still at 12 miles, and then three miles later, so I had 9 miles left. I started to get really thirsty. And I'm like, wow, I need some water. And just to give you like a time frame is, let's see, 9 miles. It's gonna take me like
4.5 hours.
Yeah, probably 4.5, 5, maybe 6 hours, depending on terrain, to get through that. And so, like, I was praying hard, man. I mean, I'm like, I need some water. Like, I'm not gonna be able to go that long without water. Like, I'm starting to freak out. And so I just went through like all the stages, man. I was just like freaking out. Then I was scared. Then I was worried. Then I was mad. Then it was like sad. And then I'm like all of a sudden, I just had this peace come over me. And like, I swear to you, I heard the voice of God like coming to me and say, like, if I can take care of like the birds, I'm gonna take care of my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa. I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, the Lord's just gonna provide. And like, yeah, and then like all of a sudden I'm like, it's fine. Like, the Lord's gonna provide, of course. And so I just kept walking. And then I came upon this side trail, and for no reason whatsoever, I just have this like strong calling, like, walk down that side trail. So I look on my map, I look on far out, and there's no comments of there being water. There's no water sources. I can see that there's no streams, lakes, anything that comes through there. There's nobody that says there's water down this trail, but I still feel like I need to walk down that trail right now. Like, that's where the water is. And so I walk down the side trail. If you know anything about hiking the AT, you don't do that because dude, you're walking a trail for 2,200 miles. The last thing you want to do is walk down another trail. Yeah. And so
it doesn't take you towards your goal. Yeah.
No. Yeah. And so I did it anyways, because I just had this such strong feeling that that's where the water is. And I start walking, and then all of a sudden I come across a big Deer Park, like 2-gallon jug of water with the date October 28th. And that was the day. That was the day that somebody had, like, I don't know who it was or what happened, but somebody had decided to drop this 2-gallon jug of water on this random trail in the middle of nowhere, not put any comments online about it, not put any, like, on far out, didn't mark it, nothing, just left it. And I thought it was crazy. I like stood there and I stared at it, and I'm like, what? Like, am I hallucinating right now? And like, I really had, like, I stared at it for like 5 minutes, and I was like hysterically laughing and crying. I'm like, what? Like, why is that there? And yeah, and so then I like, it was unopened, or it was crazy. I'm like, why is this in the middle of the woods against a tree off some random side trail? Who knows? But I drank it anyways. It was amazing. It was like the best water I've ever had.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I packed out, and that time Rocky had gotten ahead of me. He was in the same predicament. I'm like, dude, stop walking right now. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Just stop. Trust me. And I like showed up with like 2 liters of water. And he's like, what happened? And I'm like, dude, the miracle happened. I'm telling you. So yeah, like that I think was like the biggest miracle that had happened to me on trail. Like, there's no reason I should have been there. Probably came from an angel. It was it was insane.
That's great.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
I can't help but, and trust me, I believe it was a miracle. I'm making a joke, but I can't help but think about your honey bun story. Some dude's like waking up and he's like, where'd my water jugs go? Somebody stole my water.
Oh yeah, that's not what happened.
Oh, I doubt it. I don't think so. That's amazing. The question I have is, can you take, I know you can, how are you going to take these lessons, that's a great building a faith story, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to take that and put it into your life now back in civilization?
Dude, I mean, so like
can you make it correlate?
Yeah, you can, because this is like how my thought process is going to go the rest of my life. Which is just like an effect of doing the trail is now for the rest of my life, I have to take every situation that I'm dealt in life and say, is this harder than walking 2,200 miles, the equivalent of Mount Everest 19 times in elevation gain? Is it harder than that? And if it's not, then I have nothing to worry about. Or like
yeah, I get that. I mean, I get that from things that I've done, right? It's like some really hard things. It's like, I mean, mine's probably like 3 days during football, right? Like, nothing's as hard as that I've experienced yet.
For sure.
My question is more the spiritual. How do you take that experience, the miracle of the water, and then in life when it may not be thirst, it may be something else that's not showing up. Maybe it's a health issue. Maybe it's an issue with a kid in the future. Maybe it's a job issue, money. Like, how do you, and I think you can easily, but have you thought about like, can this correlate today? Like if today you had a really hard time, can you use that as a way to build faith
for sure
in a future moment?
Yeah. I mean, that situation is just like that situation really speaks to me as like miracles can happen, and they do happen. But I think like the more the lesson that I learned more is, like the hard things that happen, they're happening for a reason, and it's strengthening you. And if, it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger type deal. And that's something that I think I'm going to carry for sure, just in life and faith, and just, and perseverance, just creates character. Yeah. That's biblical. Romans.
Well, Romans. I like that. I drop the mic, Romans. So let's wrap up with this. Tell us why, or if you have some other notes, but tell us why why should somebody consider doing the trail?
Man, why should somebody do the Appalachian Trail? So I'm going to be super blunt about this, and this is probably not the answer a lot of people are expecting. There are better trails. They're better trails. The Appalachian Trail, man, like you listen to a highway the entire time. Like you can hear roads. It's very dirty. It's not well maintained. Yeah, I mean, that sucks. I hate saying that, but it's the truth. And so for a while, like I was really struggling with, talking to Rocky about this. I'm like, dude, I'm going to get on this podcast and be like, this trail, it's not great. That's hard because like I've hiked the entire thing now, and I don't have great things to say about it, but there is one thing, and there's one thing that separates it from every other trail. And that is the community and like the people. And like, we didn't touch on this too much, but big thing about, hiking is hitchhiking, like getting into towns and getting food. You rely on the goodness of other people. Like, I'm not walking 20 miles to go get food in this town. Like, I need somebody to pick me up. Yeah. And so you're just sticking your thumb out on the side of the road, man. It's as simple as that. And somebody will come and pick you up. And somebody always did. So, man, like that community and I mean, I could touch on like a few different people, and I will just real quick. Like this guy, Eddie in New Jersey. Me and Rocky are walking down the middle of the street in Warwick, New Jersey. And this guy literally pulls his car onto the sidewalk. Like, I thought it was a drive-by shooting. I'm like, this is it, bro. Like, this guy's about to shoot us. And he's like, y'all are hikers? And we're like, yeah, man. He's like, jump in my car. I'm like, dude, you don't understand. Like, we had to come off trail to this town. The short story is we had to go 30 minutes out to to get to where we were hiking. And so he told this guy that, and he's like, I don't care, man. Jump in, I'll take you. And I'm like, also, like, our laundry's still at the laundromat. Like, we got to do that. And he's like, don't even worry about it. I'll take you there, too. I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, dude, jump in. I just want to help you. And, like, he did. Like, he took us to go get our laundry and then, gave us, like, all this free food, all this other just, like, free crap. And then drove us all the way to our trailhead and dropped us off. And just like, man, y'all are awesome. Like, keep doing what you do. And, like... Sorry, all that, that was amazing. Like another example, I'll just real quick is I met this guy in New Hampshire named Chet West. And, Chet let me stay at his house for 3 days, free of charge. Not even free of charge. He paid for me to go do my laundry at the laundromat.
Wow.
And like gave me all this free stuff.
This is just a random guy.
Yeah, it was just a random guy. And, like I'll touch on his situation a little bit is like Chet was an avid hiker and through like a cooking stove exploded and soaked him in white gas. And so he had to get put into a medically induced coma for 8 months.
Whoa.
While he was in this coma, 9/11 happened, which is crazy.
Wow.
He's a wild story. You can look him up on the internet. He's pretty famous, I guess.
What's the name again? Chet what?
Chet West.
Chet West.
Great guy. He gave me a new perspective on the trail too. Like, like and he's result of that, he's in a wheelchair now and he's legally blind. And think about like this guy's passion was hiking. It's the one thing he can't do. And, man, that's hard to see. And so like from that point on, whenever it got hard or like it's really difficult, I would just think to myself, like, Chet, he would do anything to be where I am right now and like feel this pain and like to go up this mountain. He would do literally anything to make this happen.
Yeah.
So like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be happy about it. And like, I'm going to be excited because like there are people who this is their passion and now they can't. Like, he's just like a real life example of like stuff does happen.
Yeah.
And, like, that's terrible. It's terrible. But yeah, man, like the guy just let me stay at his house for 3 days and like fed me and like just took care of me for no reason. Like, why did he even do that? Who knows? Because he's a great guy. Thank you, Chet. Yeah. So anyways, your question was, why should I tell somebody else to do the trail? Yeah. The goodness of other people, man. People help you out. And like, if you think, humanity's lost and everyone sucks, like go hike the AT and you'll realize there are so many good people on earth that just will do anything to help you.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's awesome.
So the trail, I think what you're saying is the trail is less about the trail and it's more about the people.
Yes.
And the journey. It's the journey.
Trail, yes.
It's the journey of the trail, not the trail itself.
For sure. Yeah. Because like if you want to go out and be in nature and you want to like, be free from society, like go hike the PCT, go hike the CDT, the Colorado Trail, North Country Trail. There's other trails that you can find that stuff, but like the goodness of other people is why you do the AT.
Yeah.
And to find that community. And like, man, some people get so wrapped up in it. They start a Thru-Hike and then they stop and like, they like work at hostels and like, they just stay in the community because it's something that touched their lives so much. It's great.
Well, let me just say, as we wrap this up, first off, and I should have said this at the beginning, but maybe it's more appropriate after hearing all the stories. Dude, congratulations.
Thank you.
Let me shake your hand. That's an amazing thing. I remember having Weston over at my house, and man, I will say you had a scary level of confidence, if that makes any sense to you. You were so confident. I said to my wife, I was like, man, I really want him to accomplish this, but I'm afraid he may have too much confidence.
Yeah,
you know, like I always tell my kids, we talk about this in business and things. My business partner, we say confidence will kill you. Sometimes you can be overconfident,
for sure.
But man, you did it. You did it, man. You overcame a lot. That I have to say, like, there's a lot of hard things in life, but most of them are like running a marathon. You're done in a day. I'm not saying it's not a lot of work getting there and all, but like 6 months, there's a lot that can happen in 6 months. There's a lot of perseverance. I have a feeling that some of the lessons you mentioned are probably just the tip of the iceberg of what you really came away with.
Oh yeah.
And the person that you are today will never be the same because of this experience. I'm confident of it, if for the better. And man, I'm just thank you for sharing your stories with us. Thank you for sharing your journey with us from the beginning to the end. And man, it is so cool to have this podcast with you to be able to say, congratulations, you finished, versus I made it halfway and this is why I didn't make it. I mean, think about it. How cool is this? You made it.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation and not that one.
Well, I mean, you did it, man. So amazing, truly amazing. And so it's something you will have the rest of your life. And I just, I'm hopeful that some things that you said today will resonate with people beyond the AT, beyond the coolness of the experience, and that it will have a spiritual impact on them. And I believe that it'll probably be years from now that you're still reaping spiritual benefits from what happened on the trail. And you may not even know what God has done in your life fully just yet. So
for sure.
Proud of you, man.
And
yeah, thank you for sharing your journey. It was great.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Guys, thanks so much for being part of this. And thanks so much. See ya.